Chris Mutsvangwa, representing ZANU-PF as the ZANU-PF spokesperson, definitely finally came as was expected. And Chris Mutsvangwa lashing out at retired General Chiwenga, going to an extent that ZANU-PF does not deserve the kind of a leader Chiwenga is. Saying if he has issues with black business persons in Zimbabwe, then he should use the judiciary system rather than threatening people, taking law into his hands. That is what he was simply saying in simple terms, saying that is, they don't want such in ZANU-PF and they don't want such in Zimbabwe. They want peace. Chris Mutsvangwa punching retired General Chiwenga during his press briefing. Greetings and welcome to your lovely channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. Let's hear this snippet as Chris Mutsvangwa was addressing journalists before taking questions.
It's not right. That's not the way. We must not divide ourselves. The name Zigananda, I know it from the war. I was at Chitepo College. It generally referred to what is called the petty bourgeoisie. In Marxist class analysis, human beings, society, human society, people are placed in classes. And there's a class struggle between one class and another, the workers, the peasants, the middle class, then the super rich. This is generally Marxist theory about how society develops. So the petty bourgeoisie was translated with Zigananda. But this is about society. Now, because people were ambitious for power in the 1976 Washanti rebellion, they start labeling somebody who Chigananda, Muhondo. But being labeled in a class is in relation to ownership of property. Who own a property. So how do you label somebody Chigananda, Muhondo, simply because of ideas? So behind it was an attempt to grab power. So we started labeling others. So I'm very, that's why I don't want to mention names all the time when we are criticizing each other. If you start labeling other people with Zigananda, chi, then out of that you now saying it's not right. There's nothing wrong about acquiring property. There's nothing wrong about having a middle class as a country. The stronger your middle class means is the more stable your society is. Because people with property are not prone to behave in a certain manner. That's why by land reform we gave everybody property in Zimbabwe. So by definition, vanhu vese vane minda vakapiwa minda vaZvigananda. Vanhu vese vari kuchera migodhi vari kupiwa mashafti zvaZvigananda because they got property. Now you abuse that term. Now you want to use it for political purposes because you've got ambition as a politician. And uda kutaura zvinhu zvekuda kutora zvakaitika uda kusenzesa kuti Muhondo ndakazoti ndikazodaiwo. We don't. That's not the way to go as a country. And if you aspire to be leadership at the national level by labeling others in Zimbabwe, it's not right. That's not the way. We must not divide ourselves. If there is bad conduct, let it be at individual level. But not have a whole classification of people. And it's incidental. Inherit money from the colonial era. They are bigger as Zigananda if it's in relation to property. So Maria is one in Boya and Mos. It's one of West in India. No, we shouldn't do that. And I think Zimbabweans deserves better from political leadership at the highest level, especially that leadership which has got a background. We need to carry ourselves in such a manner that our conduct is beyond reproach. It's not right to start labeling and then Mafamba toda kutoti zvakanaka toda kuzviti zvakati. There are laws in the country, there are courts in the country people who have infractions about their conduct. And this vanhu kukoti vanotongwa. Haikona ngoti because azvitiko kana riri benzi akazvidaro momupanishira upenzi. Vanhu vanikwa futi mapenzi musociety. So as a party that we frown upon the idea that you give a rubric, a label to other Zimbabweans and then use that label to settle political scores with them. No, that's not the way we should go as a country. When I was South Africa, where they label each other, almost where our government wasting resources, by xenophobia, quite a demonstration, it was we are tranquil as a country because we refuse, we united as a country, as the whole population to fight one enemy. So why do you want to divide each other? I mean, I want to end on that score, but I will entertain any questions. Thank you so much.
You know, every time I listen to Chris Mutsvanga, I always laugh. And the person who asked him to do this press briefing, I think, he does justice for Zimbabweans, because we'll get to know more about what is happening within ZANU-PF. So you have heard him yourself. Of course, they would not mention each other by names in ZANU-PF when attacking each other. Equally so, retired General Chiwenga, when speaking against Mnangagwa, would just say Benzi without mentioning the Benzi, and us analyzing, looking at the statement, and then we tell you, he was saying this to so and so. So who started recently of actually speaking about these terms, Uganda, and it gained relevance in Zimbabwe? It was retired General Chiwenga at the National Heroes Acre, and his faction is the one that has been labeling these unscrupulous business personalities with wealth that cannot be traced, and obviously with wealth that is siphoned from the state resources. And these people have been listed. Zimbabweans knows who these individuals are. But today, surprisingly, Chris Mutsvanga is defending them. Remember, at one point, he was attacking Budawashe, Tagore, left, right, and center. Unfortunately, today he was busy defending Budawashe, Tagore. And it shows beyond reasonable doubt that politicians such as Chris Mutsvanga, they lack moral ground. In fact, today is defending a person, tomorrow he is actually bootlicking a person. It's a game of survival within ZANU-PF. So part of the press briefing of Chris Mutsvanga specifically centered on attacking retired General Chiwenga. You know, something just fell on top of me and hit me hard. So anyway, let me continue. So in this press briefing, especially the last part of this press briefing, before taking the questions, he hammered so much retired General Chiwenga. I mean, he spent about almost 5 minutes speaking about him, to an extent of characterizing him as a bad leader, when he says ZANU-PF deserves better leadership than, especially at the top level. It's quite clear he was referring to someone in the presidium, and Zimbabweans, when listening to this, they know it very, very well, that Chris Mutsvangwa was speaking about a retired General Chiwenga. And this press briefing is coming as the illegal constitutional amendment bill number 3 of 2026 was actually had sailed through the parliament. Now we are left with it to go through the Senate. It's not yet a done deal, but it's scary seeing this bill forced to the throats of the people of Zimbabwe, and looking at the pace in which the architects of this bill are moving with. You can see in the parliament, they did not waste time. It was a quick process. Voting was so quick to such an extent that we realized it so late that there was this process going through. I could have actually carried the audio live on this channel, but the moment I checked, I just saw the announcement. And there were many activities today that disturbed the people of Zimbabwe. Mnangagwa was addressing somewhere. There was this press briefing of Chris Mutsvanga. I promised you earlier on in the morning that I was going to look at it. So I just heard the segment where he was attacking a retired General Chiwenga, specifically about going after Zwikanandas. And you know, Blessed Geza was telling the truth that ZANU-PF is now under the control of Zwikananda. So if you're a spokesperson of ZANU-PF, you have to be seen to be defending the Zwikanandas. And this is what we see Chris Mutsvangwa doing. The party is in the hands of Zwikanandas. But in my view, I don't think it would last also a long period of time. Mnangagwa will eventually chuck them out. The biggest elephant in the room that Mnangagwa fears the most at the moment is retired General Chiwenga. If by any chance he deals with him, then he's coming after Zwikananda. Why do I say so? I mean, what was the relationship between Chiwenga as well as Emerson Tambutso Mnangagwa? Just back a few years ago in 2017, these were friends. These were brothers, and they vowed that they were brothers, and nothing was actually, there was absolutely nothing that could divide them. I heard Chiwenga at one point saying, so you can't speak that about a human being, because a human being sleeps turning. And today, Chiwenga is the worst enemy. Zwikanandas are the darling. What Mnangagwa has done to Chiwenga, he can possibly do it to Zwikananda. What Mnangagwa did during the Cholocho declaration, he can possibly do it also to the likes of Gudawashe Takure. What Rutendo Manyarare has said about Gudawashe Takure, I can attest. If Mnangagwa by any chance happens to deal with Chiwenga, then the next target would be Gudawashe Takure, because Mnangagwa has heard a lot of things. That is why you saw Tungwarara being brought to pay now this fellow, that is Rutendo Matinyarara, to try to silence him, because they have realized that he appears to whatever he was speaking about, it was the truth. So now the presidency was under attack, exposed day and night. And so Tungwarara came in to save the presidency, and he actually paid the guy, paid his silence. You are likely not to hear Rutendo Matinyarara speaking about Mnangagwa and the secrets of the family. He's quite a smart chap, as much as that smartness is very, very dangerous. So Chiwenga attacked by Chris Mutsvangwa during his press briefing. If there is anything that wants me to come back regarding the Chris. Thank you very much for watching us. If you're watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button, so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars. Okanqobo Mhlabane is signing off. Let me love and